Oh God, look at the state of this place. It's been 2 years and it looks like the press centre toilets after the first day of rehearsals. Rob, grab some bleach. Panos, get anything.
It's the ESC Tips.com
Now without hosting.
Eurovision Preview Podcast. Join us as we sort this year's contenders from the duds.
Attention, you are now entering a fanboy free zone.
Right, let's see if this stuff still works. Hello again. Are you all still out there? It's been over 2 years, and with some fresh blood in town, I thought we'd get the band back together and deliver some good old-fashioned forthright opinion before Eurovision rehearsals start in May. In this show, we're going to discuss the first semi-final along with the automatic qualifiers voting in the semi. They are Germany, Italy, and the host nation, the Netherlands. Kicking off the show, we have Lithuania, followed by Slovenia, Russia, Sweden, Australia, North Macedonia, and Ireland. The second half runs Cyprus, Norway, Croatia, Belgium, Israel, Romania, Azerbaijan, and Ukraine, before ending with the current market leader, Malta. Starting with Rob from entertainmentodds.com, how do you see this semi playing out, and who do you think the main protagonists are?
It had to feel to me like semi-final 2 in 2019. If you remember, there was sort of greater strength in the second half of that semi-final. I think we ended up with 7 qualifiers, didn't we?
Something like that, yep.
That was, yeah. And I think we could have 7 qualifiers coming out of the second half of this semi as well. I think this is the stronger of the 2 semi-finals this year. But yeah, I'm kind of looking more at the second half, containing the sort of stronger entries. I think, obviously Lithuania, Sweden looking pretty solid in the first half. But then after that, I've got sort of a few doubts, including Russia, actually, because of obviously, Belarus coming out. That's a bit of a blow, as it is for Ukraine. So, yeah, I don't think sort of Russia is a nailed-on qualifier, which I think, I was initially of that opinion. It's sort of edged more towards the borderline pile.
Yeah, it's definitely affected it with a few of their friends leaving the contest. I was hoping this one would sneak into the semi-final and then enjoy a little bit more widespread support and then sneak a top 10. But it's actually one of my favourite songs this year, which is really painful. And I think it's because she delivers it so convincingly. When you're looking for a competent artist, or at least someone that can sell it to the televote, it's usually that the song, the person, the on-stage choreography and presentation, it all sings together. And this Russian song, it just seems to deliver. It has been really esoteric. It's very esoteric. It hasn't been as well received from the older generations, but it's weird. When you look at the stats for it, the number of likes is astronomical. So it's also got equal number of dislikes, I should add. But it's getting the conversation going over there. So I do wonder if there will be quite a sizable televote from the younger generation. But proof will be in the pudding in a few weeks' time. Panos, what are you seeing in this semi?
Hi, guys. I like the conversation about Russia. It's the running order and also Belarus out are not ideal. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those Russian entries which will really only apply to the ex-USSR bloc in terms of televote and the diaspora. But if they really go for it, we've seen what happens. I mean, even Sergei in 2019, when his song was less palatable to the West compared to 2016, he managed to come fourth on the televote in 2019, mainly based on who he is in the bloc and the diaspora. So
Yep.
that alone is proof that sometimes for Russia it's enough. So yeah, we'll see, as you said. Yeah, I fully agree with Rob. It seems to be becoming a tradition. One of the two semifinals to be extremely strong and the other one extremely weak. And yeah, especially the second part is quite strong. Malta looks, in the best position, obviously, right at the end. But weird things can happen. I mean, almost out of nowhere, in that very strong semi in 2019, Norway of all the countries won the televote. So you know what I mean? Weird things like that can happen. I mean, if Malta, for example, for whatever reason, doesn't win the televote and comes second or in the televote,
I think that would definitely hamper their chances a little bit going into the final. I think the one thing it's safe to say from this semi, I think, is that Malta is in a prime position to win the jury vote, barring any last-minute surprises, just purely because that's what Malta does. The differential between what they do, televote versus juries, is crazy. There's all sorts of theories behind that, which we won't bore you with on this podcast. But then looking further afield, we've got Sweden that could challenge in the jury vote. My own opinion is that it will fall back quite considerably on the televote. Lithuania looks quite a strong televote song. I'm not sure whether it's a strength. It's certainly a strength opening the semi, but then I think there's maybe better songs to follow it, and I'm not sure what effect that will have ultimately on the final positioning. And then you've got sort of Romania later on in the semi that it's very generic, very safe, but it could just tick the jury boxes. How you feel on that one, Rob?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think fans were generally underwhelmed by Amnesia, but I think they were sort of still kind of hating on Roxanne, after she didn't choose Cherry Red last year.
Yeah.
I think when you actually revisit the track in the context of this semi-final, it potentially stands up well. And I also think Roxanne's got a touch of star quality about her. I mean, Panos will probably know more about past results, but when Romania sends decent competitive entries, I think they tend to do pretty well on the semi-final televote, don't they, Panos?
Yeah, exactly. Even in the final, if they send something that inspires their demographic, whether because the song is strong or the artist is known or both, we've seen things like, for example, I think Miracle by Paula and Ovi finished quite higher on the televote than expected,
And yet, sorry to butt in, and yet the year before, was it Voltage, the suitcase guy? We both got hit by that one, didn't we, Rob?
Yes, yeah, we did. Yeah, that was sort of a surprising disappointment, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Romania is pretty competitive in this semi-final, and possibly a bit of a dark horse for certainly a top 3 finish in this semi.
Yeah, especially with the running order.
Yeah, nice running order. And also, you go through, and we've got so many of these up-tempo solo females, and I think, they're generally pretty average. So, yeah, I think Romania's got a bit of a chance there to stand out in the second half.
Yeah, exactly. And top of the averageness, let's say, it's also that most of the up-tempo female pieces, other than Croatia, I guess, they also have something weird about them, each one in their own way, whereas Romania is more agreeable and palatable, perhaps, and it would pick up, even if it doesn't get super high votes, it would pick up medium votes from many places.
Mm-hmm.
Just going back to the female-led upbeats, so are we fairly settled that we're losing Australia, guys? I know they're on my red list.
I personally, I wouldn't be shocked to see them not qualify for the first time, but I think I am more positive about it compared to most. I mean, it's an edgy track in some ways. You know, some people love it, some people hate it. The main problem is that it's a very hard track to replicate fully live. You know, one of the hardest of the year. So I mean, if it was nailed on, coupled with an inspiring presentation like 2019, it could actually do things. You know, I mean, let me remind you that in that week first semi-final last year, before rehearsals, we were thinking Australia was borderline, and they won it. It was a very weak semi-final, obviously, so different story. So yeah, I mean, I'm not writing them off as easily as most people, but it's an uphill climb, definitely. And she has to get the right styling. The vocals have to be correct. Yeah, it's borderline.
Yeah, it just doesn't look European. And of course, we've got the issue that maybe she won't be able to travel to Eurovision. It could be the one track performed this year, which is by the video link or the pre-recorded video.
Yeah.
And I do wonder how that will translate to European televoters, and then it almost exacerbates the distance of Australia from Europe, and do we really need to vote for this one? Going further in that, we've got Ireland, who will be alone on stage. Cyprus's El Diablo. Is she going to have any staging involving priests, Panos?
It's going to self-implode if that happens. But we are expecting something impressive, and actually, funnily enough, even though it was given slot 1 from the songs in the second section, because of the balance, 8 and 8, it actually has the pimp slot, let's say, of the first. Part.
It does,
and
yeah.
Also, and also El Diablo followed by Fallen Angel. It's my favorite part of the draw.
Yes. Yeah, it is weird because you never really get this sort of line in the sand between the first half and the second half. Usually it just continues. So it is a bit of a false first half pimp for Ireland. Then we've got Croatia with Tick-Tock, actually one of my favourite upbeats of the year. I tend to think that is in. I think it's just insanely catchy.
I think so too. I think it's in.
Yeah, dated, but competently sung, well performed. I've made the comment in the Twitter review that this is the sort of thing Belarus would send, but it's also the sort of thing that Belarus might just sneak in with, and I think Croatia's got enough going on there just to creep over the line, maybe in place of Israel, which is really desperate with those high Gs that they snuck in there to try and tick a few jury boxes.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Gav. I think Israel's up against it. Eden Helen, she doesn't really convince me as a live performer. I think the track is very ordinary. Going back to Croatia, I tend to agree. I think that's probably going to get through. I think Albina she's quite easy to warm to, which is really helpful, telegenically, compared to some of these other women in this semi-final. She was a bit off-key, I thought, at the Croatian national final. She can maybe do with some vocal assistance. But, I think Croatia's fine. I think Azerbaijan potentially is in more trouble.
Yeah, I would concur with that. Could be very weird. It depends how many bells and whistles they throw at it.
Especially in that weirdness combo before Malta, Azerbaijan followed by Ukraine. I'm increasingly finding it a bit hard to imagine both of them making it, and I agree Azerbaijan is looking a bit hollow there.
And yet I find Ukraine the most jarring to listen to. I could imagine them staging it well, but this turbo folk techno type song, I don't see the East picking up the phones massively, but I certainly don't see the West.
Yeah, it's a bit niche, really, isn't it? And I mean, I really liked the original version of Shum, the extended version. I thought it was very promising, but actually the 3-minute edit, I think has made it weaker. Ukraine's usually really good with its, with its revamps, but on this occasion, I think the song has regressed. And yeah, when you look at Belarus not being in now, it's going to lose a few points there. I think Ukraine is really sort of borderline.
I'm going to be honest, I didn't spot any differences between the first and second edit.
Really, I think you can't stand to listen to it at all. That's why it's basically a different song.
That's it. Yes.
No, because I think the reason why the revamp has been so extreme is because they were borrowing from some folk song, isn't it? And they had to change some parts. So actually, the melody is quite different on many parts. But yeah, the thing with Ukraine, I don't disagree with you. It's not even an acquired taste. It's like a taste train that comes all over you and crushes you. But the thing with that is that it's so very niche. It will have a lot of people hating it, but then there will be those that find it interesting and vote for it. And it's an interesting 3 minutes, even if it's for the, oh my God, what is this kind of reaction. But Azerbaijan, it's very professional, it's very polished, it's all those things. But at the end of the day, it's very paper thin, and it's literally 80% of the time or 85% of the time of the 3 minutes, it's repeating the word Mata Hari. That's like 80% of the song, and that would have been okay in an average semi-final, but in this semi-final, I'm not sure it's enough.
Yeah, they purchased the right song last year, realised it, and have just tried to recreate it.
Exactly.
And last year's song was the song. I haven't really touched on Belgium. Are they in the wrong place, do you think, Rob?
Good one. No, I think Belgium's really classy, and the lead singer, Gaiki Anert, I think she's exceptional live, which gives it, qualification hopes. It is probably going to require that sort of big jury support to help get it through. But I don't know. I just keep going through the list of entries in this first semi-final, and I think Belgium sort of does stand out as juries I think should give it respect, and I think it's feasible that it ends up towards the top of the jury vote in this semi.
Yeah, I think the danger with Belgium is that it really struggles on the televote. I know when I saw the live performance that they did recently, it was more to audience rather than camera, which probably won't help us decide how it's going to do in Rotterdam. I didn't get any vibes that felt that she'd be capable of performing it to the cameras in Rotterdam. I just got an instant feeling there that no, the televote's just not going to be coming on board for this song. So it's solely reliant on the juries for me. What about you, Panos?
Yeah, I mean, this song is great for the car, by the way. It's one of those that when it comes on while I drive, it's so moody, And she's amazing vocally. She was their singer during the 90s and the 2000s on some of the best songs. So in terms of sound, I have no problem. But yeah, I mean, the contest, we have to admit, it is quite ageist, as well. So, and in the context of the of the ageism of the contest, she's like 65, even though she's like 40 something. You know what I mean? It's not. She doesn't really have the profile of somebody who will magnetize the public vote. So it needs a magical presentation. That's the sense I am. That's the sense I am getting. You know.
Yeah. We will see in a few weeks' time. So just quickly moving on to the countries voting in this semi-final, which will be, the automatic qualifiers, Germany, Italy and Netherlands. So Germany have sent Jendrik. What are your thoughts on this one, Panos? Because the fan media do like these sorts of messages. So do you think there's potentially a chance that an excited press centre maybe drives this one a little bit lower in the market?
That's a good point. I think actually the opposite might happen. there's enough for the fans there, and I'm not sure this will be one because, I mean, it's not as if the fans like it. If you see the various votings, it's really, really low. So actually, I think the opposite will happen. I think this might kind of like be dismissed, and then it will do maybe like a Mickey from 2019, and then come 14th or something on the televote, which is like surprisingly high, I mean.
Yeah.
And then, of course, die a death of juries.
Yeah.
Kind of like it. I hated it when it came out, but then I found myself kind of leaving it on just for the lols whenever it came, on my playlist. Yeah, so I think it might overperform a bit in terms of the televote, and by that I mean 14th or something. But then, yeah, it is what it is overall.
Anything to add on that, Rob, before we shift over to to Italy?
Not really. I mean, it's cool. It's called I Don't Feel Hate, but I think a lot of people will sort of feel a deep aversion to this song. I mean, Jendrik seems a nice guy, but it's kind of got that sort of wackiness about him on the stage, which I think can go down like a lead balloon. I suppose it is just very Marmite. So, like Panos is saying, there is maybe some televote potential there among those who are entertained, but ultimately, I think it's doing pretty poorly, surely, in the in the grand final.
Yeah.
So moving over to Italy, is this when Finland released their rock entry? It shortened a little bit. It's a different type of rock, obviously, but then it drifted. Italy do their bit of rock again. It's a different sort of rock. But even so, this one has stayed short and continues to stay short. So, Rob, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've been surprised by the strength of Italy in the outright. I mean, it's very sophisticated rock. It kind of reminded me of the White Stripes when I first heard it, and complete with the requisite rock chick on the guitar. The Italian language, I think, helps add to the credibility, but I'm just not sure that it's particularly accessible or easy to warm to on a first listen. That was my overriding sense anyway. And the lead singer of Manishkin, or however you pronounce it, he's sort of got quite an androgynous look, doesn't he? Which I don't think is a natural vote winner.
I think I remember making this point that I don't think the androgyny is a strong sell in certain parts of Europe, let's say in London or in Stockholm or in Paris, that I think it's quite a stylish track. I like it. I liked watching it when I was watching Sanremo, but I don't think it's the sort of top 3, top 4 song. I'm prepared to be wrong and be corrected on that. But it just doesn't scream something that hits the televote or excites the televote quite as much as maybe last year and previous Italian entries. How about you, Panos?
I can see the points you guys are making, and I could see a scenario where it goes down that road. But on the other hand, I think this one should be kept in mind. This song, it is quite exciting. I think the chorus is quite catchy, and overall it grips you. It grips you both because of the music and also the styling, everything as a package. It grips you from the first second, and you're like stuck there. And Italy knows how to do music, and Italian singers know how to do charisma. And the combination of this authenticity between their charisma and their music is why they do so well on the televote. Actually, year in, year out, I don't think we should be discussing whether Italy will get the televote. We should be discussing which ones are the odd years when they won't, And it was actually the 3 years when they sent women. I don't know if, maybe it's the sex appeal of the Italian guys. I think there's enough here for a strong televote result. I'm not saying it will do top 3 televote like 2019 Mahmoud or Il Volo, but it could be. It could be. I think there's enough there, both in terms of their charisma and how gripping the melody is. So I don't doubt this to have a good top 5 televote. It could happen. And at the same time, as you say, it's credible enough for the juries to actually like it. It's not a natural fit, this genre of music for the juries, but once every now and then some song comes that the juries like. For example, Fuego is not part of a genre that juries usually like, but she managed to package it in this Beyonce superstar credible way, and the juries went for it. It came fifth with the juries, which was unprecedented, you know. This is quite charismatic and has a superstar vibe about it. And I wouldn't be shocked if the juries respect it too. And yeah, I see what you're saying about the androgyny, and I agree. Of course, let's see how they tone it down and how they kind of rearrange it for the actual event. But then again, if you tally all these Central, Western, and Northern European countries, they're more in number than the Eastern ones. Plus, then if you add in a few Italian-loving Balkans, even if they get 0 from the ex-USSR, there's still enough there for them to do great, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd concur with that. I think the juries will respect it as it's a very commercial track. It's one that sits quite well on a Spotify playlist. One thing I would add about the price and the way that Italy tend to approach rehearsals at Eurovision, having sat through quite a number of rehearsals, is that Italy always rocks up early in the morning, haven't had time to have an espresso, always come half asleep. First rehearsal is usually awful because the San Remo camera work hasn't quite translated to the Eurovision stage. And then people sort of leave the arena scratching their head thinking, oh, well, what was all the fuss about? And then all of a sudden, after they've had their espresso, had a lie-in, that sort of thing, they turn up and rock it. So that's what I would expect from Italy. Right, so that covers the automatic qualifiers. Anything that we need to add before we go? How about you, Panos? Anything to add?
Well, there's so much content in the semi-final that, you know, but still there could be surprises. For example, one track we didn't talk about is Norway, which again is surprisingly short in the outright. I mean, it's obviously, you know, not going to be liked by juries, but I assume it's short because of his backstory, which I'm not sure will have an impact, but also because of what happened in 2019, you know, out of nowhere. The discussion always was, will Norway qualify? Will they enter the top 10 or come 13th? And then in the end, they won the televote. So maybe that's why. I actually wouldn't be surprised if they do really well, like top 5 again in the televote and top Scandi, let's say. Not for the same reasons as Spirit in the Sky, but because, again, this, in a year where most of the contenders seem to be trying to get the jury, forgetting that it's also like a televote contest. This one has a very clear USP, both audio USP and visual USP. And the song, even though it appears, you know, a bit cliche and dated to us purists, let's say, actually it has a bit of a Michal Spack about it. It has a great catchy melody, and this is what Tix does. You know, he's a great melody creator. This is what he's known for, and it's you know, it's very sweet, nostalgic, catchy. It's the kind of thing that I expect, and the combination of this sound with the presentation and his look, it's like this smells like a televote magnet to me, and I wouldn't be surprised if it manages again to, you know, grab that top 5. This melody, this kind of melody, catchiness combined with nostalgia, really does it. I mean, I remember I had the same reaction to the Norwegian version of this, which was the first one released, to when Color of Your Life was released. Like, I was finding myself, kind of, my brain was telling me, you cannot like these dated things. But then I was kind of loving it, even from the first listen. And that says something, you know. I mean, every single casual viewer who listened to these songs and contacted me had Norway in their short list. So yeah, I mean, it could do well in the televote. I mean, juries, you know what's going to happen there, but you know.
I quite like the song. It has that 90s pop feel to it, but it's the good bit of 90s pop rather than the bad bit. How about you, Rob? Are there any alternative thoughts for you?
It's just the fact that I do think Tix risks losing a lot of credibility because of the sort of ridiculous, over the top, Liberace type style, for want of a better description.
I think there's a nice context there, and it's interesting the juxtaposition between Cyprus and Norway, as Panos referred to earlier.
But also, I mean, it will obviously not do well with the juries. We know that. But what's good in terms of the juries in Scandi countries is that they have each other. So it's really, really hard for a Scandinavian country to finish below 17th and 40-something points with the juries. So even there, it's hard for him to do extremely bad,
Yeah. So I think that draws a close to everything. So we'll be back next week to talk about the second semi-final. See you, chaps.